multiple huge New York Met updates. This is huge. As you see on your screen, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, and Paul Blackburn. Those are going to be the three subjects of today's video. We got injury reports on all three of them per the skip, Carlos Mendoza. We also have a fourth player to talk about. Kind of an injury update, more of a roster move, but you guys will see that in just a little bit as the video progresses. Welcome back to Mets Digest, everyone. I'm your host today, Mike Duda, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch these videos. Really appreciate it, and we really appreciate it here at Digest Mets as we bring you coverage about the amazing. So I won't waste your time. Let's dive right into it. As we've gone over time and time again, this rotation of this bullpen, top to bottom, it has been incredible. It has been awesome. It has been lethal. Any word that you want to describe something good, you can describe this rotation and this bullpen as that word. And guess what? It's short-staffed. It's injured. We have four guys to talk about today. All four of them are pitchers. This rotation and this bullpen is injured, and they're still a top staff in Major League Baseball. It is awesome. It is so good, and we got great news coming. So we'll dive right into that. All of the following information from today is per Ezra Lombardi of Sports Illustrated. Read an article of his. It was from yesterday, Monday. I'm filming this on Tuesday, so yesterday being Monday, that was when the article came out. Now, there's going to be something that we mentioned Tuesday. I'll explain that a little bit more when we get to it. Just know that Tuesday already happened by the time this video is up, and I assume that what Lombardi was saying did actually happen, but I'll explain that in a little bit. So before Monday's game against the Nationals, Mendy gave us an update on three pitchers, that being Montas, Manaea, and Blackburn. So let's start off with Paul Blackburn. He is returning from a knee injury. He threw on Sunday, and then here comes the Tuesday thing. He will throw a bullpen at Citi Field on Tuesday. Again, I'm going to trust Lombardi and the fact that it was the day before and go ahead and assume that he did. I don't know for certain, though, so I guess take that with a grain of salt. But throwing a bullpen on Tuesday, he returns home. That's great, and that's great especially because he had a small setback, that being an illness, and the illness caused him to lose some weight. So my assumption is he just didn't have the energy. Maybe he wasn't healthy enough to continue throwing and rehabbing with that weight loss. So it's good that he is back from that setback. Now, originally, President of Baseball Ops, basically the general manager, David Stearns, he said it is, quote, nothing serious, unquote, when the injury originally happened, and originally predicted April as a return. Now, we're only a couple of days away from May, so there's no way he's going to return that quickly. He hasn't even started rehabbing. My assumption is he'll be back by give or take the second or third week of May, basically mid-May, which I don't think is too bad of a prediction from the President of Baseball Ops, especially considering it's Paul Blackburn, who's a piece, but I wouldn't say he's the most important piece of this team. I mean, he's not as important as Sean Manaea, which we'll talk about later. But here's something interesting that I wanted to discuss. Blackburn, unlike the others, actually pitched in spring training. In fact, he hit the IL the day before opening day. Now, this causes some speculation. We go back to Lombardi, the only quote that I have for you today from that Sports Illustrated article. This decision coincided with the announcement that Max Kranick and Huascar Brazoban earned spots in the bullpen, leading many to speculate that Blackburn's IL stint was simply a roster maneuver that would set him up to return in case of injury or poor performance. Kranick and Brazoban have both been excellent to start the season, but recent concerns surrounding fellow righties Jose Butto and Ryan Stanek could create an opening for Blackburn upon his return. Very, very interesting, and I think it's a bit of a reach at the beginning of the quote. Basically, the way I interpret it is that the beginning of the quote is saying the Mets faked an injury and put Paul Blackburn on the IL because they wanted to test out Brazoban and Kranick, and if they didn't do well or if they got hurt, Blackburn would just slide right back in their place. I don't think that happened. I don't think the Mets faked an injury. Now, maybe they made the injury seem a little bit more than it actually was, but again, I doubt that. I just don't see it with a professional ball club, let alone the Mets that have a pretty solid reputation, I would say, all in all. So I think that's a bit of a reach. But what I want to focus on here is the latter part of the quote with Butto and Stanek. And in order to do that, I'm going to need some stats, so let's go ahead and reference the stats. Now, here is the Twitter post that gives you the update on Blackburn, Montas, and Manaea. I went over all of this. So we'll go to our trusty friend, Baseball Reference. This is Paul Blackburn's career statistics. As you see, he is a above 4.5 ERA pitcher. He had above a 5 ERA last year. Never a WAR above 2. Pretty much an average pitcher, arguably a below average pitcher. Not great. Now, here is the really interesting part. Would you really put this guy in the bullpen over Jose Butto or Ryan Stanek? Yes, I know Butto and Stanek haven't been great. If you look at the stats, Jose Butto 2-0 with a 4.2 ERA in 10 games pitched, 15 innings, 1.53 whip. Stanek 0-2, 3.6 ERA, 12 games, 10 innings, a 1.50 whip. But come on, are you really going to put Paul Blackburn in there above Butto or Stanek? And I think it's also really unfair to judge the two because they both had 1 or 2 bad outings. And this was when the bullpen overall just wasn't that good in that 4-game set against Washington. Butto, before the Washington series, had a 2.51 ERA. He came in on Sunday. He just didn't have it. Pitched 2/3 of an inning and gave up 3 earned runs. Obviously, that's going to spike his ERA. His ERA went up about 1.7 points, basically 2 ERA points. Come on, you're really going to say Paul Blackburn deserves that spot because Butto had 1 bad outing? And then look at Stanek at 0.96 before the Washington series. His ERA spiked even more. His ERA spiked above 2.5 points. Really? All because of also 2/3 of an inning where he gave up 3 earned runs. It was over 2 different outings. So really we're going to judge players based off 1 or 2 bad outings when they have 10 games this entire year, 10 appearances, and the Mets have played less than 30 games. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's a reach. I think the Mets have a problem right now, and that being that they have too much MLB-ready talent, but I would way rather that than not have enough MLB caliber talent, and you're basically fielding AAA players. So, look, I know he's not going to like it, but I think Blackburn, upon returning, needs to go to AAA Syracuse until someone in that bullpen is not good, until someone in that rotation is not good, or you can find a spot for Paul Blackburn. I would say his spot should be Danny Young, but the problem is we have an injury on A.J. Minter. Go check out that video if you haven't already. And the Mets won't have a lefty without Danny Young. So Danny Young is here to stay. I think Blackburn needs to go to AAA is basically the moral of the story, but it's good that he is coming back relatively soon, it seems. Next, I got to talk about here another former A, Frankie Montas. He is returning from a lat injury. He threw from 120 feet, which is good. That's good progression. And he was someone that hasn't pitched since last year, didn't make any appearances in spring training. Recently in the offseason, Mets signed him to a 2-year, $34 million deal. So, a lot riding on this guy. In fact, the Mets selected him for $6 million cheaper than Luis Severino because Severino said he was willing to sign for a 2-year, $40 million deal. So, very, very interesting there. Montas will have to step it up when he comes back. But again, here's my problem. You see the stats in front of you, above 4 ERA career. I don't think you're going to get some fluke Montas where he's really, really good. And there's no spot for a guy in this rotation with a 4 ERA. I wouldn't go ahead and make a 6th starter. That way you can get Frankie Montas in there. I mean, you probably will because you paid him a lot of money, but I wouldn't do it. And he is not better than Holmes. I can't believe I'm saying that because I was a big Holmes stay in the bullpen guy, but he's been great as a starter. He's not better than Canning. Canning's been great. He hasn't been better than McGill. McGill has been awesome in April, and the broadcast booth is saying that they are seeing something different in McGill, in which this won't just be that fluke April month that you usually see out of him. They think this is a long-term thing where McGill is going to be really, really good. Peterson was lethal last year. He's doing fantastic, and you know who you're getting out of Kodai Senga. So there's no room in this rotation for Frankie Montas, and I don't want this team making a 6th starter in order to appeal to Frankie Montas. This is a guy that I would put in the bullpen. Maybe find your worst guy in the bullpen and go ahead and make Montas a long bullpen guy, but I know this team won't do it, so I'm very curious about how they're going to approach Montas. But if you're going to go for a 6th man, I would make it this guy. This is Sean Manaea stats from last year compared to this year. Obviously, he was one of the biggest pieces to that pitching staff in 2024. He was a big part in the reason why the Mets made the postseason and went so far. He is returning from an oblique injury. He is throwing from 75 feet, which is really good. He is now going to throw back-to-back days for the first time during his rehab assignment. And he also has not pitched in spring training and is pitching for the first time this year. He was shut down a few weeks ago from throwing after a setback, but surprisingly, with a similar timetable as Montas, he's actually projected to be back before Frankie Montas. So that's all really, really good news, and it looks like the Mets will then potentially set up that six-man rotation with Manaea in it, and maybe I will get my wish of Montas being in the bullpen because you're not going to go with a seven-man rotation. That just doesn't make sense. So I hope that Manaea comes back before Montas because I think that could make my wishes actually come true. Now, in the corresponding move, they actually sent Manaea to the 60-day IL. This makes sense because he's been on the IL for a while, so it goes retroactive to whenever he was originally in the IL, which was a while ago. He's probably already reached that 60-day. So he can basically come back whenever he's healthy. Now, the reason why they did that, I believe, is to make room on the 15-day IL for the official signing of Brooks Raley. If you haven't seen my last video, go check that out because I think that's a great contract that the Mets went ahead and inked for this year and also a team option for next year. So Brooks Raley is also back. Last thing I want to discuss here is just a quick apology to those of you whose comments I haven't gotten to yet. These videos have got a lot in them, and I really just haven't had the time to reply to these comments in the videos. I'm going to try and keep sprinkling them in throughout the videos. I had a very popular video about the possibility of Kyle Finnegan coming to Flushing, and it got a lot of responses, so thank you all for that. But just know I am getting to respond to your comments. It'll be eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later. But that's all the time I have for you today on Mets Digest. Great news in Flushing. We got 4 pitchers, all of whom have good injury updates, including Brooks Raley, who hopefully will be back at some point this year and is officially inked as a Met once again. As always, thank you so much for watching, and let's go Mets!